Hi everyone, it's Sean from Go-Wirral. We've got the amazing Lauren Palmer with us today. Obviously, we've got the tie-in with Harriet Jones. We've had Harriet Jones on before, speaking about her netball journey kind of from Wirral and being maybe the only Wirral player in the NSL. Lauren, is that the case? You know any more Wirral players?
There are a couple. I think, well, Alex Johnson, she's from Chester Way. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know exactly where she lives. And there's probably a few more that I've forgotten about. But yeah, there's definitely a few of them cropping up.
Yeah, good. And hopefully we'll see more in the future because this is Go-Wirral. What we're trying to do is kind of create like a online kind of digital ecosystem for Wirral. So it's basically connecting people to services, businesses, charities, support, netball clubs. So our daughter plays for a club called Kingsmead, and Kingsmead are Wirral's only kind of, and first, only set up this season performance club in Wirral. So we've never had a performance club in Merseyside before, and Kingsmead is the first of that type of, trialing to get in. Strength and conditioning as part of your training and all that kind of just like a bit more focused towards like that elite level. So yeah, so I thought it'd be really good to get you on, and obviously you tied into Harriet Jones, who we've had on before. So if you just want to tell people who might not know who you are, can you just explain to everyone what you do, Lauren?
Yeah, so I'm currently head coach at Leeds Rhinos Super League squad, which is where I coach Harriet. But I've coached Harriet for years through the Manchester Thunder pathway and the Northwest Regional system. I've started as a grassroots coach about when I was about 18, so quite a while ago. So yeah, just started coaching at grassroots clubs, worked my way up through the age groups. I started at under 9 and then worked all the way up through the senior setups. I've coached probably county, club, schools, like done all those to get quite a decent amount of different experiences. And the last few years now, obviously with Leeds Rhinos, this is my second season with them and coach within the England pathway structure. So very netball heavy and yeah, do a bit of dentistry on the side as a other career. So a bit of a dual career as well.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Actually, how'd you go from dentistry to netball? But you've probably played netball a lot longer than you've been a dentist, haven't you? So, uh, what was your kind of like? Where did you play as in your club when you were growing up and that? What clubs did you play for, and what position did you play?
So I was a defender. Um,
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to shoot, but I wasn't quite that good at it. So yeah, definitely a defender. And I started just at a local club called Denton Villa.
Mm-hmm.
So little club, 10 minutes away with a few friends from primary school. So I started in year 6. So I think it was about 11.
Yeah.
Went there, was there for a few years. And then when I was 13, I moved over to Tameside and played my junior netball and senior netball there. I then played at Greater Manchester County, did Northwest like regional, it was called High Performance back then, and then played within the pathways at Manchester Thunder and Loughborough Lightning.
Yeah.
So played until I was about 22, university in Manchester as well, and then my ankles just they didn't want to let me play anymore. So I thought, I love the sport too much. What can I do now? And then went into the coaching route at that point. Yeah, I played for a few different people, but yeah, very much in and around Manchester for the majority of it.
Amazing. So, did you ever think that when you first started coaching that you would end up in there? Because the NSL in England is the highest level that you can play at, isn't it? And kind of be at. Did you ever think that you would make it this far?
I think for me, it was always, I'm so competitive and so driven. Like, if you
Hmm.
tell me I'm going to coach at club level, straight away, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I love that. But I want to coach at county level, the next level up. And I was always that way sort of inclined. So when I first started, obviously, you want to coach for Super League, you want to coach for your country, you want to do all this stuff. And it seemed quite a distant sort of dream and ambition. But I was like, let's put it up there, have something to aim at, but I'm just going to enjoy my coaching and my journey along the way. And I always said I wanted to be a Super League coach by 35 because I put quite a lot into the netball and I wanted to do it because my dentistry took a little bit of a back burner. But at some point I was like, well, if the netball's not going to work out, I do need to maybe focus a little bit more time and energy into that. So I was always like, nope, need to do it by 35. Just because then I can actually have a career path in life. So yeah, did it by the age of 33, and I'm just glad that I threw everything at it and embraced that opportunity.
And you are the youngest head coach, aren't you, in the NSL?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
Very good. Very good. It's quite an achievement. It's about the kind of reality of coaching elite athletes. So me, myself, my background is in homelessness and charity and community work. And I manage teams and lead teams to work with people who are like really hard to help, essentially. So people who might have addictions and stuff like that. But actually a lot of my management style and a lot of things that I focus on with those teams is taken from sport. I think to myself, how does someone motivate people? So say you're a football coach, how do you motivate someone who has got everything? So like, and that's the same for netball. So how do you motivate people who are very, very, very good at what they do without them taking offense and storming off and knowing better?
Yeah, I think managing a group of elite athletes and a wider staff group is probably more difficult than the coaching. I think it's the group of athletes we've got at Rhinos. They're brilliant. They're so driven, and individually, they want to be at the highest level that they can reach. They want to
Yeah.
get top four in Super League. They want to play for their international countries, wherever they sort of come from. And I think for us, that's half the battle, because if I need to give some tough feedback, they know it's not me being mean or just trying to single them out or anything like that. It's because you want to get to a certain place as an individual, but also as a team. So there has to be times where we have tough conversations. And I think that's all part and parcel of building up relationships with athletes, because I spent a lot of time in preseason with the girls, whether we just go out for a coffee or whether, I just have a little chat with them. And I think those little connections and conversations, building that relationship you've got with players, because some of the girls that come in, the majority I have worked with before, but there are some that I hadn't. And I think just spending time to get to know them, build those relationships, you get the respect a lot quicker when they know you're only there to help them. And there are going to be tough times, but there's also going to be amazing times. And, when they do the things right that they're working on, or they achieve a certain milestone, I think they reflect back and go, do you know what? Fair, like it was done with the right intention. So it's not easy. And I think when you've got 10 players that are all very different personalities, and the way you'd work with one athlete compared to another is totally different. And I think as a coach, sometimes that's really hard, because you've got to, some people go really hard, and other people, fluff it up, make them feel great about themselves, but still deliver the same message. So I think the big part of it is just knowing your athletes, what makes them tick, and what you need to do to get the best reaction out of them.
Yeah, I think it's just really interesting because, we had Harriet on talking about her experience, and she's very driven, isn't she? Very competitive, probably quite hard on herself, I would imagine, and self-critical. Would you describe your like leadership style as anything with athletes? What would you say your coaching style is?
I think for me, I try and go down, especially with seniors, an
Hmm.
approachable route. I listen to them. If they, as a leadership group, put forward, or, we think we'd really need this to succeed, or can we change something at training, or have you thought about this? I'm very, very open to that. And I think the girls know. So they're always, dropping things in the chat like, oh, what
Yeah.
about this? What about that? I think for me, I'm definitely approachable. I'm open, and I've got a growth mindset as a coach. So I'm definitely not stuck in my ways. And I think being a young coach, you are probably a bit more sort of open to new things and trying different ways, because you haven't done like learnt your craft and done the same thing for 30 years. So I'm definitely open to that. But also I think when I see the point of, no, that's not good enough, like we do it again. No, do
Yeah.
it again. So it's a bit of a combination to being approachable and listening and, trial and error with things. But ultimately, when it gets to that point that I need to be like, no, that's not good enough, I can be quite, not harsh, that's probably the wrong word, but harsh. They get told.
Ruthless. So, do you think that maybe the future of coaching within the NSL and globally is kind of going towards younger coaches? Do you think that there is a shift towards younger coaching or not?
I think there's pros and cons to all of it. There's
Hmm.
it's great, like working with someone a little bit older that's got more experience, just to lean on. Oh, have you come across this scenario before, or have you thought about this? And I think actually the two can bounce off each other. I got to work with Maggie last year. She'll kill me for saying she's older, but it was really nice to work with her because she'd been in and around the Super League for so long. I came in with all these fresh ideas, new things, new vision, and she like embraced it. She was like, "Yeah, this is great." But then it was great having her at the side of me going, "Well, actually, I've seen this before, Lauren, and maybe not that. Or what do you think about this?" So I actually think experience and youth can go hand in hand together. I just think for me, one of my big sort of passions with it is that there are a lot of coaches that have come through the playing route, and that's fantastic. They've got so many experiences playing. They've been to competitions. They know how a team works, what makes players tick, and their on court knowledge in their positions is fantastic. But for me, I didn't necessarily come through that route. I've worked my way up through the coaching ranks, and there's not as much opportunity for coaches that have worked their way up through those ranks as
Yeah.
opposed to, an elite player. So I think for me, it's me getting this opportunity. I'm the only coach in the Super League that hasn't come through that kind of system. So
Okay.
we're trying to make Leeds Rhinos a little bit of a niche place for that because Francine, who is my assistant at present at Super League, she's had a similar route. She played a little bit of Super League, but she's never played for England or international. So we're trying to really invest in coach CPD and be like, you don't have to have been an ex-player because that is a big persona at the moment and a big barrier for a lot of grassroots coaches. So we're trying to break that barrier because I've come through that route. So why can't other people?
That's really interesting. I remember football going through something similar. I do remember Spurs got a manager called Andre Villas-Boas, I think he was called. And he was one of the first kind of managers that came from outside playing. He hadn't played. And everyone was like, well, what's he going to know about? And actually, it didn't work, but it introduced the idea of you don't have to be from the playing background to be an effective manager. And now there's absolutely tons in football that are not from the playing background because it's a completely different skill set, isn't it? Coaching and managing. And we've seen so many in football. You've seen so many players who were really good players go into management and just not do well because it's a completely different skill set. It's managing people, it's managing expectations, it's managing personalities. That's very different than you going onto the pitch and playing because you're really good at something. So it's a completely different skill set, isn't it? And hopefully, yeah, you'll see more of that in the future. Let's talk a little bit about players because you spent loads of time in pathways and around teams who are developing. And also, you spent time with the Future Roses program, haven't you?
Yeah.
So what is it that makes these players, what makes the elite players from the players who kind of just fall by the wayside as they get older into their journey, their netballing journey? What is the mindset?
I think the pathways in England are fantastic. There's so many of them, and it gives players an option to find the style of coaching they like, the style of play. And I think that's really exciting because, when I was growing up, there wasn't that many options. You sort of just went to the local one. I think for the players, it's having a bit of a point of difference. The last thing you want to see, if I was a selector at a pathway trial or wherever, is 20 people coming in who are exactly the same because to create a squad, you want people that can play 2, 3 positions. You want people that are going to offer you something different so that if you're in a game and person A is on at wing attack first quarter and it's not working, you need something completely different because it's probably the style. So a lot of people you turn up and you see them just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's understanding and learning the variety. A big thing for me is for youngsters as well is they need to watch netball. I was guilty of it when I was younger. I wasn't overly interested in watching it. I just wanted to play. And I think by watching how accessible Super League is now compared to back in the day, it's so accessible on YouTube and BBC and everything. It's easy for kids to go and watch the elite wing attacks and pick up some tricks and tips and put that point of difference into their game because that just puts them to one side. But just picking up the mindset thing, I think it's very, very rare that an athlete would get a very linear journey of they'll get into this academy, then the next, then the next, then the next, and before they know it, they're playing for Super League squads. Like it doesn't always happen like that. And you see so many ups and downs in athletes' journeys. And the ones that succeed are the ones that are the most resilient and that have the parents behind them that don't, sit and compare them to others and moan about decisions. They're the ones that go, it's all right, you've not been picked this week, but let's go out on the local field outside and do some extra bits of running or a bit of extra ball stuff. And it's never easy. And I've seen athletes on massive highs, but also really low lows. And it's those that can have that mental toughness to go, I really, really want this. So I'm going to take on board every bit of feedback. I'm going to do everything extra I can. And when I don't get picked, it's not a angry conversation with a coach. It's a, what can I do better? Like, give me the feedback and I'll go work on it. And those athletes that do those extra 1%, and that's what we call them, away from the session, they're usually by the age of sort of 17, 18, the ones that are knocking on the door of these England pathways or Super League squads. And it could be that at 12 years old, they weren't even getting picked for the local club team. And it's the journey. And I think a lot of people are impatient, me included. You want everything right now. Whereas actually it's that patience and determination over time, which makes you want it that much more. So just,
Yeah.
that perseverance on it massively.
Absolutely, and that positive mindset as well, isn't it? But in terms of like Harriet was talking about, there'll be times where you don't get played or you don't get selected, and if you are that naturally competitive player or person, the natural reaction is to be like disappointed, feeling rejected, and it kind of impacts your mental health and stuff. But it is about getting that support network around you, isn't it? Really, to kind of like pick you up and get back on it. Really.
Yeah. And having that support system, family, friends, whatever that looks like is huge. And I think the girls that do succeed, like Harriet's perfect example, her mum and dad and a boyfriend, they go to everything. They support her. They'll travel to London and back to watch her play. And they're a huge support system for her. And I think that's so important in Harriet's success. Whereas people who've got, support systems around them that don't massively put an arm around you and go, it's all right, you didn't do great today or you didn't get picked, that just sit there and go, oh, well, the coach didn't do this right and you should have done this. It just builds a bit of entitlement. And I think that's where a lot of athletes slip up. So it's not necessarily just the athlete. I think it's those around them that can really shape their mindset and how well they do and what their success looks like.
So we've been talking about that elite level, but then let's kind of go right back. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today was because obviously my daughter is at a club called Kingsmead, which is a performance netball club. You set your own club up, didn't you? When did you set that up? Was it 2019?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about Kingsway Power.
So grassroots sports, it's my favorite thing. I love it. You get to coach with your friends. Like, the kids are just so good. They're so keen. And it was always a big passion of mine. Like, I love club netball. And I'd been at Tameside for years and years and years. And you get to a point sometimes you just want a bit of a change. So I thought, rather than going to another club, I had a crazy idea of, I'll just set my own up, and had minimal expectations of what it would be like. I thought, yeah, we'll just have a couple of age groups, see what happens, get some performance girls in, have a stab at these big competitions and what have you. But when I put a flyer out and then like 100, I think it was 55 girls rocked up at a trial, I was like, oh my word, like definitely took off a little bit quicker than I anticipated. But yeah, the club has massively grown. Obviously, we've set it up in 2019. We then had COVID within our first season. So we didn't really get going till sort of like 2021, 22. So considering since that point how well the girls have performed, the achievements that we've achieved, and how much the club has now grown, we take girls from reception in our little minis program to age group teams at under 7 all the way through to seniors. So it's absolutely massive. We've got loads of new coaches in. We've now got like the girls that are coming through the system. So 17, 18-year-olds now becoming junior coaches and pushing them through that journey as well. So it's growing and growing, and it's becoming more and more of a, yes, it's a performance club and we want to compete at the highest level, but ultimately it is a massive club family and everyone's got everyone's back and everyone's there for the same reasons. So it is a really nice space. And when you've come out of the stress of Super League and go into club, I'm like, oh, this is so nice just to come and coach and have fun and enjoy it.
And you've just won the under 16 nationals, haven't you?
Yes, we did.
Was that first nationals or?
No, so we've won it twice at under 14s and then
Hmm.
medalled at under 16s. So we finished third 2 years ago, second last year, and was like, right, we need to get a win this time. So yeah, it's the first time we've won 16s, but yeah, we've got a couple of 14s titles since we started a couple of years ago, which is like fantastic, and the girls deserved it so much. So yeah, really proud of what they did it was last weekend.
You know, when you were setting the club up, did it ruffle any feathers? What were the challenges when you first set it up?
Yeah, massively ruffled quite a few, I think. But I think with anything new, and like you said about Kingsmead, that they've probably had similar-ish reactions. But I think with anything new that's a bit of an unknown, and anyone that knows me, they know how driven I am, and if I'm doing something, I'm going all in, and it's going to be good. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. So I think people at first were like, "It's incredible what you've done. This is amazing," and then when you start to get success, that people are, they're not overly struck on the idea, and it's just change. And I think the majority of people and around us have been really supportive and embraced the idea of a new performance club. And from where we're set up, like Cheadle, Audley Edge, that there isn't really any netball massively around there. There's a lot of neighbouring towns with clubs, but it was a pretty empty area for netball in terms of a club. So yeah, we took it in, took over that little patch, and grew it massively.
Amazing. No, really good. So we've kind of like covered elite stuff, grassroots stuff. What do you think the future of netball is? What do you think the future of netball is? Is that a positive sign? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the fact that already, it's growing, the coverage is increasing is only a positive thing. And since netball sort of 2.0, as we like to call it, happened, the games are all accessible to everyone, and the crowds are gradually growing. The sport has become, although it's professional, I'd say it's almost professional. The salaries of players isn't, and if you look at a football model, it's nowhere near in comparison. And for Rhinos, we still train of an evening. Some of our girls have still got other jobs. And I think until we're at the point of we can make it fully professional, like an Australia SSN kind of model where you're in during the day, the salaries reflect that you don't need to get another job. So your full focus is on netball and your body recovery, analysis, and everything like that. I think that's where it needs to get to, because once the elite game is at the top level, and hopefully the English Super League can start to become in a few years on a level with the SSN, like that's the dream. It's going to take a bit of time to get it there, but I think if you look at the Super League this year, like there's been some games and we've been on the end of some blowouts, which is not ideal. But on the whole, like the majority of the games across the board have been quite competitive. So the
Absolutely.
viewer, the neutral, obviously addition of Super Shot, maybe for coaches makes it more stressful, but for the viewer, 100%, it's definitely more entertaining when a team's down by 10 and then a few shots later they're back level. And I think that addition has made it more viewer friendly and made it more interesting than the traditional netball route with no super shot. But I think those additions, the fact that the final this year is at the Co-op Live in Manchester, like for me being from Manchester, I was like, that's epic. Like that is unreal. And if they could fill that arena with fans and make a big spectacle of it, I just think that's a huge shift forward from, where it's been in the past. And the fact that a Co-op Live in Manchester can host that final is just mega. Like,
I love the players coming from other countries, kind of getting players coming across and playing in this league. See, is that always been the case? Have we always had the high number of people coming from overseas, or is that
yeah,
kind of happening more now, do you think?
I think, well, we're allowed to bring two imports in. That's
Okay.
the restriction. So I don't know what it would look like. I think financially for clubs, even if the import like rule was lifted, so you could have a couple more or unlimited, whatever that looked like, I think there'd always be a limit for clubs because obviously it's quite expensive to get imports in. But yeah, I think the fact that we can have those players in is very exciting for our league and also for England netball because Sam Marie, who's with us, is probably one of the best defenders in the world, in my opinion. She's fantastic. Just her playing ability, but also the way she is off the court. She's such an athlete. She's a dream to coach, like really, really receptive. But also her playing style, like the English girls that are playing in Super League, getting to play against the style of her every week. And, there's quite a few South Africans in the league. And just for the girls to get exposed to those different styles will only help England in that international window as well. So I think, yeah, having the imports in massively strengthens the league, but it also brings fans from overseas as well, just to get everyone talking about the league and making it as exciting as possible. So yeah, having the imports is fantastic. But yeah, I think there's also a real importance on developing English talent as well. So it's just trying to sort of find the balance between the two.
Yeah, some amazing players at Leeds, actually. When you look at that your team on paper, it's just like, it's unreal, actually, isn't it? And I think results haven't gone your way this season yet, really. But I just think you're better than the results say, I think. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough slog, and I think in signing window last year we were all so excited about the group, and then to lose Joyce, obviously she's having a baby, which is amazing for her, but I think that was a huge blow because like last year she was our leading super shotter, so that was a big blow, and then obviously we've had a few injuries, little ones, and then to lose Jazz and to lose Cassie on season ending was again just blow after blow, but it's a young squad this year. It's so exciting. And if we look at our second half of the season, yes, we've got a couple of bonus points, which will massively help us on the table. But ultimately, our scores in the second half are better than the first half. So for a young squad that was a brand new squad, that growth and performance across the season, it is getting there. It's just, yeah, we just love a win at some point soon. So yeah,
It's a team for the future, and you know that while they're playing, and it's almost like you're not expecting them to win every game. A win is nice, obviously, but it's almost recognizing that this team is, yeah, a team for now, but definitely a team for like next season or maybe even the season after that, isn't it?
yeah,
What
100%.
I want to know though, Lauren, is right. I'm from Wirral. You're on Go-Wirral. Why hasn't Merseyside got a franchise? Like, why hasn't Everton? I'm an Evertonian. Why haven't Everton got a netball team? That's what I want to know.
I think when the tender process went out, I think it was 2 years ago when it became 2.0, obviously areas had to bid for a team and I don't know where the bids were from other than obviously the ones that are in Super League. But I think the goal and how exciting it would be that if every major city in the country,
Yeah.
similar to football, had their own, franchise and pathway and the accessibility of that for athletes, and that would be amazing. Like Liverpool, when we played at the weekend at the M&S Arena, it was so exciting. Like that arena was insane. It was so good, and just to be able to see netball over sort of Liverpool way was great because there's so much talent across Northwest, and there's hotbeds everywhere. But yeah, definitely, if there was more franchises and every city was represented, I think it would then bring that fan base. You look at football fans, and when you decide you're a football fan for a certain club, you're sort of stuck with it for life, and it brings
Yeah.
that rivalry and everything like that. So how cool it would be to have like a Liverpool Manchester derby, or for like Leeds, Sheffield, like all these big cities. I think that would be insane growth, multiple leagues. Like if you look at the football model, you've obviously got the Prem and Championship and other leagues. So I think, yeah, if for the growth of the sport, it might take 10, 15 years plus, who knows how long, but yeah, how exciting that would be to have a big team in every city where rivalries of fans can, start to build up, and just more opportunity for the kids in pathways as well would be insane as well.
Forest have shown that you can do it. You can tie in with the footy team. You can kind of utilize that kind of structure and the internal stuff that the football kind of brings to it. It's worked really well for Forest, actually, hasn't it? And they've built it pretty fast. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think the if you look at the Super League, obviously you've got Forest, and we're attached to the rugby side. There's a
Mhm.
few examples of multi-sport models with the netball, and I think it's great. Like from our side, we dip into the staffing from the rugby side, the media crosses over, and I know Forest is the same. And just having that wider sport model, I think really does help because of facilities, of staffing, of opportunities. Like for example, at Leeds, we've got a hotel in the rugby stadium that we put the girls up overnight because otherwise they're all traveling from all over. So there's definitely pros of the crossovers, but coming from a standalone franchise like at Thunder, where I was for quite a long time, they've got different challenges, but also different ways they make it work. So I think the multi-sport model is a good driving force and a way forward, but I think you still can do it on your own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Thunder kind of operates separately, doesn't it? And it's definitely like the most successful kind of NSL club, isn't it? I think. So you've had so many achievements, you've done so much. What is your proudest moment within netball?
Um, I think there's a couple. I think for me, the first national title that Kingsway won, which was back in 2023, I think for me was a big thing because I set this grassroots club up with no expectation and, whether people thought I could or couldn't, just to get that tap on the back to go, yeah, you are good enough. Like you've set this up and you've gone and won a national title. I think that was quite an emotional one. And I'm not an emotional person. So that definitely was up there. And I think the other one is getting the Super League job at Leeds, because something I wanted for a long, long time. And I'm my own biggest critic, probably similar to Harriet, in a sense of I doubt myself probably more than others. And for me to even apply for that job, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to apply for just the experience of an interview, see what I get. And then when I got the call off Dan to say, no, we actually want you, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And that was definitely a special as one. So yeah, I'd probably say those two are my top two.
If you got a young player in Wirral playing netball, or that might want to play, or maybe a bit older and wants to coach, what is your main kind of advice that you would give them? Do you think if they want to play at the elite level or coach at the elite level like you?
I think you've all got to start somewhere, so it doesn't matter where you play in, where you're coaching, just go do it. Get as many experiences as you can. So, for example, if it's a young coach, like go watch other people coach. Don't get stuck, not stuck, that's probably the wrong word, but don't get stuck with like the same coach watching them week after week. Go in, watch a few different coaches, few different styles, see what works for you. Same with players, it's great like being coached by one coach, but if you're, say, club coach, also coaches at franchise, go play a different franchise, get as many different coaches, different experiences, play with different players. Just go and get that, because the amount you'll learn from multiple different people and players around you will be more than you get from doing extra like one-to-ones, because I see that everywhere. Like, and that's great. And I think over summer and, down season, just topping yourself up is great. But ultimately, the different experiences with different players, different coaches will really, really set you aside. Watch netball is my big thing. Like, if you're a coach, watch netball, but watch it critically. Like, what are they setting up? Or, I'd spend many a time watching a netball match at home going, oh, if I was the coach, what would I do? And what would this be? And, just by watching a match, you can really, really test yourself. And players, like I said before, if you're a wing attack, go watch, your elite wing attacks from this country, or get a subscription on Netball Pass for the Australian League and watch them. And the more you study the game and the more you surround yourself with different experiences, that's for me the best route forward.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks a lot for that.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me on.